some of the research that I've done into the sort of, as I mentioned, like the cesspit, the breeding grounds for people that feel like these mass shooters feel. They are in online forums where people feel like they can blame their problems on other people, and they are provided a sort of like echo chamber to express themselves where they won't be challenged. And they have other people around them that help them make sense of the world that affirms and reaffirms what it is that they thought things were supposed to be. In other words, let's take for a moment a white male, right? I want to make sure that it is said plainly that white men are our brothers. And if we're painting with broad strokes, they might be having a tough time adjusting to the changing climate, racial composition, political climate of this country. Okay. Our brothers, right? And we, being the older brothers and sisters, being of African descent, being the first humans, I've always felt like despite our troubles and our issues, we also have to be mindful. And historically, we have been very patient and very mindful of our younger brothers and sisters that we share this planet with. There is a degree of compassion and grace that I found often in Black women who are older than me. Those people that pray. You know, I'm not a person that engages to the same degree that some other folks do, but I see the emotion, I see the commitment to positivity and hoping for positive outcomes. I've never seen Black women take up arms and pitchforks and that sort of thing. And that has not been my reality. So, for our white male brothers who have been promised the American dream, who have been promised, when you get older, you can be anything you want to be. Right. You can be a movie star. You can be an NBA player. You can whatever. And then, you know, as they develop into men and they realize that they don't have access to money, opportunities, companionship, you know, that they thought, there's a realization that life may not ultimately hold everything that they expected. And they are prime for the why. And if they are fed information from sources that have ulterior motives, a separate agenda, etc., they could be convinced that in the case of El Paso, Texas, it's Mexican people coming across the border, stealing your jobs, affecting the economy, and this is why your life looks like this, as opposed to unfettered capitalism, corporate greed, you know, these sorts of things. The people that are taking from you look just like you. You know, they're able to receive disinformation and misinformation. If the political climate looks like people are having conversations about white supremacy and white privilege, and these white men look at their own lives and say, well, shoot, I wish I had some white supremacy. I wish I had some white privilege. Man, that would certainly change things around here. Then it's easier for them to push back. And they can find themselves being upset because when they look at TV and they see these Black millionaires and more recently Black billionaires, who have all of the things, all the reality that they want to live. To them, they're connecting dots that they've been primed to connect, right? They're not looking at numbers. They're not looking at things in mass. And so the long and the short of it is that it's easy for them to end up receiving information that allows them to feel more comfortable about where they are and why they haven't done more. And then they end up moving in this direction. It sounds like you want to jump in, please.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that crossed my mind as you were talking. When you mentioned that they were in this echo chamber, in the social media environment, where everyone is bouncing off of each other with the same concept. There isn't anyone in there to differ with what they are chanting. It's easy to buy into that and to become grounded in that particular environment. And one of the things as human beings, I don't know why the analogy is, it's like a choir. Everybody's singing their song on social media in whatever link that is, and they're just chiming in and they're giving their part. And everyone wants to be somebody within there. That some come out and they do their solo act. And that solo act is with that gum. That's how they demonstrate, I am with you. I am somebody within this environment, especially if they're looking to be acknowledged for who they are. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, as a whole, people need to understand that you can be whatever you want to be. You can go wherever you want to go. The fact is, and I would say this in class, especially to my athletes and to people in the arts, that someone said, Dr. Westenberg, I'm going to make it to the pro. And I said, you need to work on this assignment, or you need to do this English assignment. But I'm going to have a secretary. I don't need it. There are so many slots in the world for you to get to that point. I would say here in Phoenix, if you look at the number of high school football players or basketball players that want to get to the pros, and I'm changing over a little bit. This isn't about guns, but you want to get to the pros. There are just so many slots that are there to be filled. And you think about each one of the high schools and each one of the young men or the young ladies in that. Everybody's not going to get there.
Yeah.
It's simply not going to happen. So I always say you have to find something else, some safety net that you can use. And the young people that are engaging in this racism, that's all that they know.
Yeah.
They have bought into it. They have not put themselves in any other environment to latch on to. It's like in a cell and they're locked in and they can't get out. And so they just continue to move in that direction. And that's the unfortunate aspect of it.
Yeah. So watch this. There's, unfortunately, there's these corners of the internet, in my research that are very, very toxic and very, very sick. And what ends up happening is there are people sharing these really hateful ideas about Black people, about anybody who's not really straight, white, etc. But there are women in these forums as well. And they actually encourage this. They praise the previous mass shooter. And then they encourage whoever's currently working on a manifesto to get a higher score and to go out and do more harm. And they suggest to these folks that they'll be remembered and worshiped as a hero. And you got to think, if you're at a point in your life where you feel like your life has no value, no one cares if you're here or not, even if you do something awful and die, at least your life meant something. And for some people, fueled by hate and the desire to matter, because they've been promised that, you're special and you're unique and you can do anything. I think the intersection of those two elements is really part and parcel to what I see in most of these backstories of these mass shooters. And unfortunately, we as a people, we end up bearing the brunt of it. Right. And then the society at large and children. And, there's been plenty of mass shootings that are not specifically racially targeted. Mm-hmm. And so, but a lot of these components remain the same. People, if they're not mad at Black people specifically, they're mad at liberals in general, or they're mad. These are often conservative folks carrying out these attacks, deeply, radically conservative.
I guess that's why I think there should be legislatively some process to limit, restrict the type of messaging. And I believe in freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. But there should be legislation to limit any messaging that is destructive to society.
And, I want to agree with you here, because in the nation state of Germany, where they have a history of systematically exterminating human beings, yeah. And obviously, once upon a time, it was under Nazi rule, they have very strict rules in place. And Germany, for the most part, is exactly what we would consider in terms of like a free country. But just like in this country, you can't go into a movie theater and yell fire. Mm-hmm. Certain speech is not protected. Mm-hmm. And that certainly is a move that we could consider, in addition to what many people agree is the problem. Everybody having access to guns, and people doubling and tripling down on the Second Amendment rights that were written for muskets. And now mm-hmm. people have AKs and so forth. So we'll keep talking, but that's where we are now.